All right, so today's topic, or the topic we've chosen to discuss, probably a little bit of a controversial topic in a number of ways. So the title is going to be on this video, Ritvik, the Death of the Sampradaya. So basically what we're discussing, in a sense, is what is known as the Ritvik, or the Ritvik system of initiations, which is popular in certain sections of the Hare Krishna movement. What we're not doing, however, and someone might say, well, that's not being fair to the Ritviks, because what we're not doing is we're not going into the detail of their stance, except for in general. More of the detail of their stance would be reference to a paper which they have had around for many years. I believe it's under the title of The Final Order.
Yeah.
However, the main summary of the whole thing, of the Ritviks, is pretty much based on the idea that there are no pure devotees. And in order to be guru, one has to be a pure devotee. That's kind of a backup argument for them, because really I think they put their final order first. The paper called The Final Order, which is based on a number of recorded conversations in the last period of Srila Prabhupada's Manifest Leela, where the whole how the succession would take place after him, the appointment of some Ritviks to act in his behalf. In the meantime, that means prior to his departure. Anyway, it's an area of much debate, but this paper is there, and I'm sure many devotees have looked at this, and then sort of and one of the reasons we're not going to even discuss this is because that is completely ludicrous in my thinking. Because if the final order contradicts all other orders, all other statements, and all other letters, all other lectures, all other books, everything he wrote, said, did throughout his whole life, and then in the last few weeks of his life he gives a contradictory order that just nullifies why even bother to read so many things that His Divine Grace wrote regarding the necessity of accepting a spiritual master.
Right.
So then to back up the final order, they say, well, that's because there were no pure devotees. There are no pure devotees. Therefore, the final order is Prabhupada will be the final guru. So anyway, it philosophically, it's not a very substantial argument. And we're not going to go tit for tat on that.
Yeah.
But because we're exploring actually much more in this conversation than just Ritvik and final order and things like that. We're discussing a broader sense of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, the Siddhanta and the Parampara. So someone may say, well, that's a pretty heavy title. Where'd you come up with that? Ritvik, the Death of the Sampradaya. Well, that's a direct quote from Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, when he was asked in the late 1990s. And if those of you who don't know, Srila Puri Maharaj is a disciple of Srila Bhakti-siddhanta, a godbrother of our Srila Prabhupada, and of course then a godbrother of all the disciples of Saraswati Thakur, and a very close friend and deep admirer of Srila Sridhara Maharaj. And in the 1990s, it came to pass that he guided many devotees from the Western world. He had been doing so with devotees from Bengal and Assam and Bangladesh for decades. He joined with Srila Bhakti-siddhanta at a very young age. I believe even before Srila Bhakti-siddhanta had taken sannyas in 1918, Srila Puri Maharaj was associated with Srila Bhakti-siddhanta. His family was associated with Bhaktivinoda Thakura, and this is certainly no upstart. And when he was asked in the 1990s about the the developing Rtvik system of initiation, which was taking place in a fringe group or a separated group from the main ISKCON group. He said Ritvik means the death of the Sampradaya. And he didn't just say that once, he said that a number of times. So the title of this video is a direct quote from Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj. All right, so we had planned to make this topic, discuss this today, but, we're not like, this isn't, as always our topics are, we got the subject, we kind of have a general idea of what we're going to talk about, and Gary, you have a few quotes and everything.
Right.
So we're not going tit for tat on this. So I had told a friend of mine through the internet who lives in Vrindavan, I told a friend of mine that this was going to be our next topic. And I don't know if he was remembering that or not, but he happened to send me a quote this morning, a forwarded message on WhatsApp. He sent me this forwarded message from someone. And it's very interesting. I'm going to read the beginning of it, which is just that person speaking to my friend, and then we'll read the quote that he sends, which is a quote from Srila Bhakti-siddhanta. And I'll mention where that quote comes from, etc. So this is what was forwarded to me. It says, Prabhu, Sahasra Koti Dandabats, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Prabhu, what do you think of this quotation from Srila Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati Thakur in relation to our present ISKCON Diksha system established and promoted by the GBC? GBC meaning the Governing Body Commission. So this person writes this, and then he gives this quote. Now, the interesting thing about this quote they're going to read from Srila Bhakti-siddhanta is this, whoever this person is who wrote my friend, copied this from our website, from an article on Krishna Talk called Sri Guru Tattva and the Secret of Diksha by Srila Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati. So in that article, which is basically a composite article, was that a composite, Giri, or was that?
No, it was actually a transcript of a conversation between Saji Thakur and one Bengali gentleman, Rajan Babu.
Right, but that was published in Gaudiya Math and
Nadia Prakash, their daily newspaper.
I think that's probably gives that information on our website, doesn't it? So it's actually an article which is from a transcribe that was, they didn't have tape recorders in those days. People used to just take shorthands and jot it all down. It was published in Bhakti-siddhanta's newspaper or magazine?
Newspaper, Nadia Prakash.
And the Nadia Prakash newspaper. All right, so then Giri Maharaj, you are the one who translated this then into English, and it's on our website. So this person, whoever it is, this devotee went there, read this article, takes this quote, and sends it to a friend of mine in Vrindavan. So let me read you now the part of the article which he's excerpted here. So there's a devotee, his name is Rajan Babu. Mm-hmm. And, it just begins like this. Rajan Babu says, isn't the Kanishta Adhikari qualified to give initiation into the mantra? Srila Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada replies, where is the Kanishta Adhikari coming from? Who gave him the Adhikar? A Kanishta Adhikari can never become a guru. Then this Rajan Babu, he inquires further. He says, can a Madhyam Adhikari give Diksha? Saraswati Thakur replies, he can only perform the initial duties of Diksha. It is the Uttam Adhikari Maha-bhagavat Vaiṣṇava who is actually the Diksha Guru. Mm. All right. Then he throws in here a quote from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhyam Leela, chapter 24, verse 330, which is a translation from Srila Prabhupada's Chaitanya Charitamrita English translation.
Yeah, his purport. Yeah.
Yes, from his purport. And there, our Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada says, when one has attained the topmost position of maha-bhagavat, he is to be accepted as a guru and worshipped exactly as Hari, the personality of Godhead. Only such a person is eligible to occupy the post of a guru.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so having read these statements in this article, this devotee has written my friend and said, hey, what do you think of this? And how do you think that corresponds to the established position of gurus in ISKCON who are appointed by the GBC, and which is the current system, he calls it the current system of Diksha. So, Giri, I requested you to look up something that I remembered from years ago, giving the GBC a chance to kind of speak at this moment. And it's pretty much the latest. I think it was a few years ago, but I haven't heard of anything that would outdate.
They haven't changed it. They haven't changed
it. So tell us where that is and read that clearly, what it is. This is a statement, an official statement, what year it came out and everything, an official statement in the GBC minutes, or maybe it's even in the law book, I'm not sure. But tell us.
This is Resolution 409 from the year 2004. So it's a GBC resolution. So the GBC writes, Srila Prabhupada said that his disciples would become regular gurus and that each of their disciples would thus be a disciple of my disciple. On the strength of our Vaishnava tradition and the statements of Srila Prabhupada, the GBC concludes that Srila Prabhupada intended his disciples to become regular gurus after he physically departed. As a matter of utmost ecclesiastical responsibility, ISKCON's ultimate managing authority, the GBC, regulates who within ISKCON may perform the service of initiating disciples. When the GBC allows a devotee to take up the service of initiating, it does not thereby endorse him as an Uttama Adhikari or pure devotee, or certify his having achieved any specific state of realization. Rather, the GBC indicates that it has no objection to his initiating disciples within ISKCON.
Excuse me for laughing, but wow. Okay, I have to laugh. I mean, you would think that was 2004. You'd think by now they would have changed that statement. Read that last part again.
Sure. 1 minute. I'll just open it again. Where was that? I'm just trying to find I just think I closed it. Did I close it?
Okay, let me paraphrase.
Yeah, I found it. Okay,
again. Read that last part again, but he's not a pure devotee. He's not a maha-bhagavat.
When the GBC allows a devotee to take up the service of initiating, it does not thereby endorse him as an Uttama Adhikari or pure devotee, or certify his having achieved any specific state of realization. Rather, the GBC indicates that it has no objection to his initiating disciples within ISKCON.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I don't know. Okay, anyway. Wow. All right, so he's not a pure devotee, he's not a maha-bhagavat, and hasn't achieved any status in self-realization, but it's okay for him to initiate. Okay, so I guess that's kind of the definition of a regular guru.
Right.
Right? It mentions in the beginning of that a regular guru. Now, I wonder what the Sanskrit for regular guru is. All right, so it sounds like that whole statement's actually a crock of it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Fill in the blanks, a crock of you know what.
Yep.
Okay, he's not a pure devotee. So let me just read this here. There's a couple of words written down here. Pure devotee, paramahamsa, maha-bhagavat, prema-bhakta. Prema-bhakta meaning one who has the love of God.
Right.
So what do you think, Giri? We both have our extended experience with the Hare Krishna movement. We were both in ISKCON for decades and decades. So And they're our cousin brothers, so, we know pretty much. In other words, we keep our hand on the pulse a little bit.
Right.
So I want you to answer these questions and I think the answers you're going to give is what most devotees in the Hare Krishna movement today, both specifically in ISKCON and many from outside ISKCON also, would agree with your answers. And let's just start with a simple array. There's 4 words here. But what I'm trying to establish, I'll get to in a minute. All right, my question is, does a pure devotee have love of God? Yes or no?
Yes.
A pure devotee has love of God. Excellent. Is a maha-bhagavat a pure devotee?
Yes.
Is a pure devotee a paramahamsa?
Yes.
Is a pure devotee a maha-bhagavat?
Yep.
So what we're establishing here with your answers is a pure devotee, paramahamsa, maha-bhagavat, and prema-bhakta. They're pretty much synonyms for each other. A pure devotee is a maha-bhagavat, maha-bhagavat's a pure devotee is a paramahamsa, paramahamsa has love of God. They're all interchangeable, pretty much. Do you think that's a fair statement as how most devotees would agree with us on this?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
All right. Now, if we the most commonly used of these 4 terms in regard to a qualification to being guru, the most used is pure devotee. And the others kind of probably, I don't know, maha-bhagavat and paramahamsa, they come in quite strong in terms of how many times they've been used. We didn't look this up.
Right.
And probably stating that the only one who has love of God can be guru. That's not stated so much. It's usually he must be paramahamsa, he must be maha-bhagavat, and must be a pure devotee. All right. All right, so this is a very interesting topic because what we just said isn't correct. And this statement that you read by the GBC is actually quite contradictory.
Right.
So the first thing is, it's something I've observed for a long, long time, and especially it became very prominent after the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada, our Guru Maharaj. The pure devotee. Who is a pure devotee? Well, we were told at that particular juncture in time that only the chosen 11 acharyas to be, they were pure devotees. Nobody else. They were the ones who pleased Srila Prabhupada the most. They were pure devotees. Because they were pure devotees, they were maha-bhagavats, they were paramahamsas, they had love of God, and all these types of things. So, and now we just read that, now the GBC doesn't recognize that anybody who's initiating, an authorized initiate, is a pure devotee or a maha-bhagavat. But they seem to be, according to Shastra, maha-bhagavat seems to be the qualification.
Right.
The most stressed qualification. Now, I wonder why that is. Why, in Shastra, being a Sudha Bhakta isn't the highest position. So, if you ask me those questions, if you can remember the questions, I'll give the question, I'll give the answer. Is a pure devotee got love of God? Not necessarily. All those who have love of God are pure devotees, but all pure devotees don't have love of God. And I'll get around to explaining this.
Right.
Is a pure devotee a maha-bhagavat? No, not necessarily, but all maha-bhagavats are pure devotees. Is a pure devotee a paramahamsa? Not necessarily, but all paramahamsas are pure devotees. All right. So do I have any, what do I saying? What am I saying? Well, I'm saying this. There are several things. And first we're going to, Giri, I want you to read from those 2 letters of Srila Prabhupada, where back in the, I think it was 1972, controversy had been brewing in Hawaii around one particular disciple of Srila Prabhupada, whose name at that time was Siddhaswarupananda Goswami. And the devotees in Hawaii were putting Siddhaswarup forward as the only pure devotee other than Srila Prabhupada. That Srila Prabhupada was pure devotee, and that Siddha was also a pure devotee. And in certain areas, this became kind of like a controversy, or it got a little heated, I guess you'd say. I was in New York at the time, and I remember when this letter, the first letter you're going to read, was posted on the bulletin board. So go ahead and read the part of that letter which we're concerned with here.
Sure. So this is a letter to Tushta Krishna, 1972, 14th of December. Srila Prabhupada writes, anyone sincerely serving the spiritual master is a pure devotee. It may be Siddha Swarup or others, Siddha Swarup. This must be very clearly stated. It is not only that your Siddha Swarup is a pure devotee and not others. Do not try to make a faction. Siddha Swarup is a good soul, but others should not be misled. Anyone who is surrendered to the spiritual master is a pure devotee. It doesn't matter if Siddha Swarup or non-Siddha Swarup. Amongst ourselves, one should respect others as Prabhu, master, one another. As soon as we distinguish here is a pure devotee, as soon as we distinguish here is a pure devotee, he is not a pure devotee, that means I am a nonsense. Why you only want to be in the spiritual sky with Siddha Swarup? Why not all? If Siddha Swarup can go, why not everyone? Siddha Swarup will go, you will go, Shama Sundar will go, all others will go.
And Srila Prabhupada later added, except Mr. Nair.
Yes, he said, except Mr. He will not go, he said, yeah.
Is that in the letter?
That's in the letter.
Yeah, Nair. Those of you who don't know, Nair was this Hindu gentleman in Bombay who had who had sold the property where the Juhu ISKCON temple is to Srila Prabhupada, and then later had tried to steal it back through some bribery in the courts and all this stuff. And so Srila Prabhupada was saying everyone will go back to Godhead except Mr. Nair. All right, so I remember.
But there was another letter here.
Well, wait. Before you read that, yeah, okay, go ahead and read that other letter.
Sure. So a few days later, Prabhupada wrote to Madhuvisa Prabhu and said, recently I had sent one letter to reply to Tushta Krishna's questions about Siddha Swarup, namely that Siddha Swarup may be pure devotee. But so all of you are also pure devotees. There is no question that Siddha Swarup is only pure devotee and no one else is pure devotee. All of my disciples, as soon as they surrender themselves to Krishna, they become pure devotees actually.
Did you find that quote from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu also?
I did. I found a number of quotes actually from both Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and especially Bhaktivinoda Thakura.
All right. So let's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu first. Is this from the verse or from
This is the actual verse.
Okay. Read that verse and then give us the quotes you have from. Give Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu first and then Bhaktivinoda.
Sure. So this is just after Rupa Goswami has given the 64 angas, 64 divisions of sadhana bhakti. He says the last 5 of these 64, namely worship of the deity in the temple, relishing the Bhagavatam, association of the company of devotees, chanting the name of Krishna, and residence in Mathura, these possess such extraordinary spiritual force that what to speak of having absolute faith in them, even a short time practice of these 5 arouses bhava in the pure hearts of non-offensive devotees. After a short time's practice, it says.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a little bit of an esoteric support.
Sure. Right. But Bhaktivinoda Thakura in Harinam Chintamani says, by the potency given by a genuine guru, a fortunate person whose chanting is a shadow of the holy name easily attains pure love after a few days. A few days. Swalpa dinam, he says, a few days.
Okay. So, I remember it was in New York, and this was quite bewildering because Srila Prabhupada is saying all my disciples are pure devotees, and there were 3 or 4 of us standing there reading this, and the question was like, well, how can what does this mean, and how can this be? And so this is what I said at the time. I offered an explanation. I said, well, it must be. I mean, number one, Srila Prabhupada said it. But then how can it be, and what does it mean? And I said, what do you call a person who works in a coal mine?
Miner.
Coal miner.
Yeah.
Not just a miner. He's a coal miner.
Right.
And so what do you call someone who practices pure devotion? Pure devotee.
Pure devotee.
So what type of devotion are we practicing in the Hare Krishna movement? Are we practicing karma mishra bhakti? Are we hanging on to all of our material desires and just doing a little dovetailing here and there? What is it we're actually doing?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so remember my questions a few back. Is a pure devotee in love of God and maha-bhagavat, are these all rolled into one? It's one. Bingo, you got it. You're a pure devotee today and you have love of God. And the answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big thing that is misunderstood. They're just put as if they're synonyms for each other. They're not.
Right.
One becomes a pure devotee by accepting and surrendering to a bona fide spiritual master in the line of pure devotional service. Then that type of devotion which he is practicing or she is practicing is called pure devotion. And a lifetime of practice of pure devotion for those who make proper progress culminates in love of God, prema-bhakti. Does a maha-bhagavat have prema-bhakti? Yes. Does a paramahamsa have prema-bhakti? Yes. Does every pure devotee have prema-bhakti? Not necessarily. There are stages of development towards the love of God, and these developments only happen in the life of a pure devotee. But because this has just become so loose talk, pure devotee, Prabhupada's a pure devotee, Prabhupada's love of God, pure devotee, you're not a pure devotee, you don't have love of God, you can't be guru. It's all just these, being kicked around the block in English, and then the GBC is stating none of them are pure devotees. We're not saying they are. Well, we're not saying they are, but we're certainly not going to put our stamp on it and say they are, because who knows what's going to happen next week,
Right.
So, but this is contradictory to the instruction that Srila Prabhupada gave in these two letters. It is also contradictory to Shastra and everything we have learned.
Right.
So when you discuss the qualifications of guru and you say must be pure devotee, must be maha-bhagavat, must be paramahamsa, must have love of God, then I could ask the question, let's say, Giri, you're from my generation and you're a disciple of Srila Prabhupada and you're there in 1967. Well, in 1967, we had no contact with anybody from India, any of Prabhupada's godbrothers, anybody. There was just Srila Prabhupada. So who said that Prabhupada was a paramahamsa? Who said he was a maha-bhagavat? Who said he had love of God? I mean, this is just historically. Who said
Right.
it?
The disciples.
The disciples said it, right. Did he say it? I am a paramahamsa? I don't know. So. Not that I know of. Did he say, I am a pure devotee? I don't know that he ever said such a thing. Did he say, I am a maha-bhagavat? Very definitive, clear statements?
No.
And the answer is no. So who said he was? His disciples said he was.
Right.
His disciples said he was pure devotee, paramahamsa, maha-bhagavat. I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying, historically, how do we know? Well, I joined in 1970 and someone told me Prabhupada's a paramahamsa.
Right.
And that person then blooped a couple years later. So the question could be raised, say, from somebody who doesn't have the feeling for it. Let's say, how did these kanishtas, how did these beginners, how did they know? How did they know Prabhupada was a paramahamsa?
Because every disciple will say that about his guru naturally.
Yeah, and sometimes he might be true and sometimes it might be false.
Right.
There are plenty of bogies out there.
Yeah.
Plenty of bogies and sahajis out there in the world. And they claim all these titles. Paramahamsa, just got a mosquito. paramahamsa, maha-bhagavat, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
So we were discussing that. We always confuse these words. Is that subjective or objective? The disciple.
Oh, that's subjective.
Yes. Now, someone may have a total nonsense Sahajiya guru and may say the same things. My guru is a paramahamsa. You know. Mm-hmm. In fact, Yogananda is called a paramahamsa. Paramahamsa Yogananda.
Right.
Who said he was a paramahamsa? His disciples said he was a paramahamsa.
Mm-hmm.
So, now, what does Prabhupada say about who knows the science of Krishna?
Yeah, actually, there's many quotes from Srila Prabhupada in this regard. For example, in Honolulu, June the 1st, 75, in a lecture, Prabhupada says, anyone who knows the science of Krishna, he becomes a guru. So every one of you can become a guru, provided you understand the science of Krishna.
Yeah, that I think that is one is repeated many times. He knows the science of Krishna.
Yeah.
So I had many science teachers, you know, when I was in school. I never went to college, but I could look up at the college and see, oh, they got many departments of science and there are many teachers there, and it goes on and goes on. And then there were people that are more advanced than the teachers, and they worked at Planck's Institute of Physics and Technology and here and there and everything. And they were all in the science, but they were at different levels also. So, I mean, maybe we'll have a couple other things to quote here, but really what this comes down to, of course, one should see, and what is the most important characteristic for an inquisitive disciple to look for in this world when trying to find a guru? What is the most important thing? Evam parampara. Krishna says, just try to learn the truth by approaching a bona fide spiritual master. So one has to understand who has seen the truth,
right.
and one has to research what it means bona fide. And what that means is parampara. So that's one of the first things. What is the parampara? A person is, someone says, oh, this person is a guru. In fact, I have an acquaintance who studies Vedanta, and his guru teaches Vedanta in India, and he told me, no, my guru doesn't have a guru. And when I asked this, one day I was discussing Vedanta with this friend, acquaintance, and I asked him which Vedanta they studied, and it ended up being Shankar's Bhashya Vedanta. And then I was mentioning to him about Vyasadeva writing Vedanta Sutra, and we accept Bhagavatam as a natural commentary on Vedanta. He said, who's Vyas? And when I say he teaches Vedanta, not for free. The courses run sometimes as much as $7,000 for a 6 weeks course in Vedanta, and the people teaching it didn't know that Vyasadeva is the one who wrote the original Vedanta Sutra, and then it's been commented upon by Shankaracharya and Madhva and Ramanuja and so many others, but they didn't even know this. So for some people, parampara isn't even in the picture. Finding guru is just based on knowledge. You see?
Right.
The first and foremost thing in the Vaishnava circles is parampara. You see, what is one's parampara? Then within that, one should know that science of Krishna. But it's obviously that that science can be known at different levels. You see, that can be known at different levels, and they're not all the same level. Like today, we find many people who are gurus, but they teach their disciples that they were once in eternal Leela with Krishna. They were pure devotees in the spiritual world, in full love of God, but one day they became envious of Krishna and they fell into this material world. Or they may teach their disciples that Balaram is the Guru Tattva in all rasas. That's the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story. So in one of these things they may say are totally wrong, and the other thing they're saying is only partially correct. So you see, this is it's there's a wide spectrum here from make it up as you go to you got part of it right to you got more of it right to you have all of it right, and then there's the actual personal development, and it gets very, very difficult to say, well, who has love of Krishna? I remember back in the day when one of the gurus in England was feigning love of Krishna. There was a huge scandal that year. One of the gurus in England in the Hare Krishna movement was feigning love of God and exhibiting great ecstasies from the Vyasa-san and literally falling from his chair and rolling on the ground and crying and wailing and all of this in public during the Guru Puja. Probably these things are forgotten. No one wants to talk about these things anymore. And it was a huge debate in the movement. Does this guru, Srila so-and-so, is he exhibiting love of God? And he's saying, I don't know why I've been chosen and all this stuff. And it was dividing the movement at the time. People couldn't figure it out. So they finally took one of these tapes where they all lasted for several hours. And they took one of these tapes and they let Srila Maharaj listen to the quality of the moaning, groaning, and the chanting. It didn't take him but a few seconds to analyze, this is nonsense. This is Maya. What they found out later is that Guru was taking 3 hits of LSD upstairs in his room. Then he was coming down, greeting the deities, taking some Charanamrita, and sitting on the Vyasa-san for his puja, Guru Puja. And, 20 minutes later, from the time he took that LSD, he was on a rocket ship. And he was just chanting up a storm and exhibiting ecstasy, and no one could figure this out, you see. But if it hadn't been for some investigative research in England at the time, and if they hadn't have gone to Srila Sridhar Maharaj, it might have torn this movement completely in half. I mean, people were heavy on both sides. How can this be? And the others were saying, no, it is. He has love of God. So just by some external symptoms, that can be faked. Or that can be brought on by something else. But for the quality of that sound, we have a saying in the material world, takes one to know one, you see. So I had thought at one time that Srila Prabhupada had said something like that, but I haven't been able to research it. It takes a paramahamsa to know a paramahamsa. So you have, what it appears to me to be more than anything, it's the fate of the individual soul that's based on their sukriti, their sanskara, and their seriousness at the time. If what you're looking for is a sugar daddy guru who will just, bless you, your house, and the prasadam, and that's it. If that's all you're looking for, then you'll find a bona fide guru of that quality. If you're looking for total nonsense and you're not serious at all, then you'll find a cheater. It appears to be that according to the, not exclusively, but the sincerity of the disciple, it's like the Hindus say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Okay, that's a Hindu saying, but you can see there's some truth in that. What is that verse? All wandering throughout the universe. Brahmanande kom Bhagavana Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasadi Paya Bhakti Lata Beach. Living entities are wandering throughout the universe. Then by the grace of Krishna, they meet Guru. And by the grace of Guru, they get Krishna. So it first begins, they're wandering and they're searching, and then they get what? Nothing? They're not searching. Search and you will find. What are you actually looking for? What is the deepest part of your heart? What is it searching for? And Srila Sridhar Maharaj used to stress, now you've come for that highest gift of Mahaprabhu. Now don't become a self-deceiver and cheat yourself. continue to remember, what have I come here for? Why have I left my family? Why have I left my country? Why have I left my wealth and opportunity behind in this world? For what?
Mm-hmm.
Don't become a self-deceiver. Remember what you have come here for and settle for nothing less. So to me, that speaks a lot about what's our desire. This will determine a lot, a whole lot.
In that regard, Srila Prabhupada had mentioned in a lecture in 72, he said, so if you are actually serious about Krishna, then Krishna will send you some of his representative and he will take charge of you. That is the process. If you do not find a guru, that means Krishna is not yet pleased. Either you are not serious.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. So the Ritviks are saying, well, there is nobody qualified. That's like, what was that story from Mahabharata? Duryodhana and Arjuna? No, Duryodhana and Yudhisthira.
Mm.
And Krishna said, I want you go out into the kingdom, I want you to find someone inferior. Was it inferior to you or superior to you?
Superior to you.
I want you to find someone who is superior to you.
Mm.
And so they both went out and they came back at some point, sometime later, and they were both alone. So Krishna asked Duryodhana, so you have come back alone? He said, yes, my lord, I could not find anybody superior to myself. And Arjuna.
Yudhishthira.
Yudhisthira, he asked to find someone inferior to you.
Right.
Superior to you.
Yeah.
Inferior to you. And Yudhisthira came back alone. And Krishna says, so, why are you alone? He said, my lord, I cannot find anybody inferior to myself.
Mm.
So the world is as how we see it, you see. And Duryodhana couldn't see that anybody was superior to him. He was the best of all. So and Arjuna couldn't see anybody inferior to himself, thinking himself lower than others. Not Arjuna, Yudhisthira. So the senior most Vaishnava sees Guru everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
In Bhagavatam, Guru is even found in the animals, in the crow, in the dog, in the different animals. Prabhupada found the order of his Guru in a postman. The postman, I believe it was the postman, said, oh, why you don't print books? And Prabhupada took it that was the order of his Guru, descending to him through a postman.
Mm-hmm.
So finding the shiksha of Guru, finding the shelter of Guru, all these things, it's not that it just all happens and we have no play in that.
Mm-hmm.
So both these actually we say that the Ritviks undo themselves. I mean, if you follow Vaishnava philosophy, their philosophy is undone. They're like, well, according to Prabhupada, they can't find Guru because they're not sincere.
Mm.
But they will say, well, no, you can't find Guru because there is no one qualified. And I once said to a Ritvik, really, have you met all the Vaishnavas in the world? Really? You've met all the Vaishnavas in the world and no one's qualified. And then I said, how about this? You had 5,000 disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Some of them have been following this process for upwards of 50 years, without fall down, without deviation. There are such persons. But they have not become pure devotees. Then why would you want to try to follow this process when 5,000 other people before you who actually had Prabhupada's personal association, who served him at his bedside, who helped put on his shoes, who cooked for him and served him and all these things. And what is becoming up here depend on the mercy of the spiritual master? But after all of this, he didn't give his mercy to anybody. He didn't give his blessings to anybody. Nobody became a pure devotee. But here you are, 50 years later, you're just going to follow his teachings and you're going to get his blessings and become a pure devotee. You're so much better than all these other people. Is that what you're saying? Well, no, that's not what they're saying because they're not thinking.
Mm-hmm. And if the process doesn't work, why are you following the process anyway?
The process doesn't work. He has no mercy. These people have been doing this for their whole lifetime. There's no mercy. So actually, this Ritvik philosophy is not born out of deep contemplation. It is not born out of deep study of the Shastra. It is born out of disappointment. Disappointment and fighting. It became an alternative to an oppressive system which they had experienced. An oppressive system where people tried to usurp the position, the actual position of Srila Prabhupada was attempted. I'm not going to put any names in the story, but the story has about 11 different chapters, and in each of those chapters, and in different ways, at different degrees, and some of them to the nth degree, tried to usurp the position of Srila Prabhupada as the Acharya of ISKCON, going so far as to even say to some of their godbrothers, I'm your guru now, not Srila Prabhupada. So because of those types of things and everything that led to it, led after it, that is what born the idea.
But two wrongs don't make a right.
Yes. However, the idea of Ritvik, it wasn't, that's how it got established, through disappointment, through fighting and all these things. However, the first ideas of Ritvik didn't manifest first time this ever happened in history. And I heard Srila Sridhara Maharaj explain that after the Gaudiya Math, there were several meetings as to how the mission should be taken forward, and the topic of the guru and initiations came up, and one devotee, disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, gave an elegant speech, you would say, an elegant presentation, glorifying Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, glorifying his teaching, glorifying his mission, glorifying his books, and summarizing by saying, this is all we need going forward. He is the eternal guru of the Gaudiya Math, and was establishing the idea, which is the idea of Ritviks today. That there's Prabhupada, there's Prabhupada's teaching, his books, his letters, his conversations, his recorded, he's got his deity, he's the founder of Acharya, he's Acharya, he's the last guru, everything going forward, everyone's disciple of Srila Prabhupada. So this same thing was presented about Bhaktisiddhanta. And afterwards, the next speaker was Srila Sridhara Maharaj. He then spoke and praised this devotee for his glorification of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. But the conclusion he didn't agree with, and he summed it up by saying, we cannot agree with this conclusion because we are not Sikhs. Sikhs are the Siddharjis, the Punjabis, who after the time of Guru Gobind Singh declared there will be no more gurus in the parampara from Guru Nanak, which had been going on for a couple hundred years. And when the last guru in the line was killed by the Muslims, then his son took up being the guru, raised an army, and declared that henceforward there will be no more gurus. There will only be priests. There will only be Ritviks.
Right.
So Sridhar Maharaj pointed this out, that we are not Sikhs, you see. It was also pointed out that after the disappearance of Bhaktivinoda, there were a group of followers of Bhaktivinoda. They wanted to do the same thing. That no
we have
one
his books.
Excuse me?
They said, we have Bhaktivinoda's books. We don't need anything else.
That's right. And Srila Saraswati Thakur is the one who stood up and carried the line forward from Bhaktivinoda. So it's almost natural for soft-hearted and especially for, I guess you might say, more neophyte devotees to think that after the disappearance of the guru that, well, we have his books, we have his teachings, we have his mission, we have all this stuff, so that's it. And now we just give initiations on his behalf. Well, that's been rejected from the time of Bhaktivinoda, the time of Bhaktisiddhanta, and this was rejected also when the idea was brought towards Srila Puri Maharaj, or before that, Sridhar Maharaj or Ritvik. Actually, it was the guru in Los Angeles in the very beginning who sent a group of devotees, or a couple devotees, to Sridhar Maharaj and express his sentiments that he felt unqualified, and that he felt that everything that he will just initiate and connect people to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's their guru.
Mm.
And Sridhar Maharaj said he said a laudable way of thinking. In other words, yes, this is the correct line of thinking, but you cannot abandon your duty in the process. And so actually, Guru always connects his disciples to the previous Guru. And there are letters, we didn't dig them up now, there are letters where Prabhupada is telling all of us, or them, I wasn't joined yet, but I think it was 68, he's saying all of you are actually disciples of Bhakti-siddhanta. You are his students. He has sent you. This is his movement. This is the natural thinking in the parampara. But the difference between the Ritvik and the what we call the covered Ritviks, which I'll get around to in a minute, is they avoid their duty in the process, and it's misleading. Also, there have been people who have been thrown out of our Sampradaya in the past for suggesting a similar system. Having been initiated by a guru, but actually feeling they're more the disciple of the previous guru. Mm-hmm. And there have been several instances of this. One of them was, help me with the names, Gary. One of them was, who started the Ativadis, what's his name? Rupa Kaviraj.
Right.
Rupa Kaviraj was ousted, thrown out of the Sampradaya for jumping over the head of his guru and claiming to be more the guru or the disciple of the previous guru.
In Bhakti Ratnakar also there's the story of Jai Gopal. His guru was illiterate, but he was a pure devotee. But because his guru was illiterate, then he used to say he was when people say, who's your guru? He'd say he's Param Guru. And Via Chandra Goswami, the son of Nityananda, when he heard that, he wrote a letter to all the Vaishnava communities in Bengal, Orissa, and Vrindavan, saying they should reject this man on the spot. He's an offender.
Yes. Now, I know some gurus in ISKCON. I've had conversations with them, and they're not disciples of Srila Prabhupada. They're not sannyasis, disciples of Prabhupada. They took sannyas from a disciple of Prabhupada, and they became authorized to become guru by a disciple of Prabhupada. But in all the talks I've ever had with them, they never even mentioned their guru. Everything is right. Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. So, yeah, it seems to have some of the same systems. But here what you just did, Gary, you just did the classic. Oh, he was a pure devotee.
That's what it was written in Bhakti Ratnaka. His guru was a pure devotee.
Yeah, So this word, and there you would take it. Yes, pure devotee meaning maha-bhagavat, paramahamsa, etc., etc. So it's wrong to think that it's just one ball of wax and one day you're going to get it. Pure devotee, love of God, it just all comes about in one moment, at one time. It's particularly the love of God. It only comes after leading a lifetime of pure devotion. And there are stages there are stages leading up to pure devotion, and what kind of devotion do you think they think Prabhupada was teaching? Mixed devotion? He's teaching us mixed bhakti. Don't surrender everything, kind of almost get there, but just hold a little bit back, you don't want to rush ahead, you want to enjoy. Are you kidding me? He was about everything now, 100%. Fully surrendered, full shelter, full faith. Yasha Devi Parabhaktir, those who have that complete faith, they will realize all the purports of the Vedas, etc., etc., etc. He wasn't a half-baked potato. He was the full deal.
There's an important letter that Prabhupada wrote to Tamal Krishna Maharaj in 1970, mentioning this. He says, a spiritual master is always liberated. In any condition of his life, he should be not mistaken as ordinary human being. This position of a spiritual master is achieved by three processes. One is called sadhana siddha. That means one who is liberated by executing the regulated principle of devotional service. Another is kripa siddha, one who is liberated by the mercy of Krishna or his devotee. And another is nitya siddha, who is never forgetful of Krishna throughout his whole life. These are the three features the perfection of life.
Mm-hmm. There's also the aspect that it depends on how you see. Like when you see a mountain, you see it from different angles of vision. So sometimes the position of guru, paramahamsa, but I think I might have mentioned the other day that the paramahamsa, in order for the paramahamsa to be guru, to function as a guru, he has to come down to the madhyam level.
Right.
Because the paramahamsa sees everyone is superior to himself. Himself is inferior to everyone. And in that vision, it becomes almost impossible for the paramahamsa to instruct, correct his disciples, or even accept disciples.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's said that actually the position of the one who is acting as a guru is a madhyam, madhyamadhikari, the middle stage where discrimination is made. Oh, this person is ignorance. This person's in ignorance. Oh, they do not know. And they're duty bound by the order of Krishna to explain to them. But a paramahamsa is a much higher stage. So it's not a simple subject. It's not a simple subject matter. And when in doubt, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. These are the three references that we go to. And one of these people who left ISKCON and established this institute called the Jiva Institute took exception some years ago when I made the statement in an article that we take sadhu, we take the Vaishnava as superior to the Shastra. And one of the references I gave to this is that sometimes, and particularly in the case of Ramananda Roy and Mahaprabhu, the devotee speaks which you can't even find in the Shastra. It is almost impossible to trace it in the Shastra. And actually, the Shastra are only two things. They're the words of the Supreme Lord and the words of devotees.
Right.
And the Shastra is a, what's it called? Not dynamic. The opposite of dynamic?
Static.
It's static. It just sits there on your bookshelf. And you open it and you read it. You see? But the devotee, the Vaishnava, is dynamic. Dynamic. And what the Vaishnava says today may be Shastra in the future. Right. And I've even pointed out that Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Jaiva Dharma, well, Sridhara Maharaj pointed it out, it's part of eternity. He has brought that down. It's not a novel. And I went so far as to say, in future Kalpa, it may appear parts of it as an Upanishad. What are Upanishads? They are conversations from the bygone eras, even in other universes, or some bygone time between the sadhus, the gurus and the disciples. So you see the Jaiva Dharma is full of such conversations, and very well may be in the future. So when looking at Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, we find no support to the contemporary Ritvik idea that, you were initiated, you weren't even born when Srila Prabhupada was on this planet, and now you're initiated by some make-believe process of putting a name in a box or a bag or a hat. I mean, when someone said hat, I thought of rabbits, Reach in and pull a rabbit out of a hat, write the name. Somebody will write some names down, and then you'll reach in, and the one you pull out, that's the one Prabhupada gave to you. This process of it. And then, I meet this person, they're 23 years old, and I ask them, oh, whose disciple are you? And they say, I'm Prabhupada's disciple. Oh, really?
Prabhupada had no say in that.
Keep on dreaming. But here's something very interesting. I've seen that there's like two types of Ritviks. The one in India, headed by the group in Bangalore, and the ones in the West. And the ones in the West are super acidic. Oh, man. super uptight, super angry. And the ones in India, well, I found them to be quite impressive and very sincere. So I kind of had to adjust my own, I guess it's rhetoric. And that some of these Ritviks are very sincere. It seemed to me very sincere in trying to serve and trying to follow Srila Prabhupada. Particularly, I'm speaking about the older ones that came out of ISKCON due to the fighting and everything. But nonetheless, Ritvik is, according to Srila Puri Maharaj, and I think you could get that dittoed by, so many others, actually, in different words. It is the death of the Sampradaya. It becomes no different than the Sikh religion. It becomes very much compromised like the Ramakrishna mission. So then from Ramakrishna mission, you have Hare Krishna mission, you see. And almost any Hindu understands that there's Guru Parampara. It begins from Manu Samhita all the way down to the present day that one has to take. Actually, the Manu Samhita says one should take the chair of the Guru, the seat.
Right.
Sit on the deer skin or the tiger skin. I forget exactly how it was worded there. And so forth. And all of a sudden, there's no more. There's just books, tapes, all these things. No living conception, just the previous Acharya, which is now 43 years ago for anyone accepting that today. So, and this continues to be a confusion in ISKCON, and I want to point out at this point, because they have also a semi-Ritvik conception. In the Guru Tattva, the only person above a guru is his own guru, and the personality above that guru chain of disciplic succession is Krishna. But in the contemporary Hare Krishna movement, particularly in ISKCON, the guru is not the highest authority. The GBC is the highest authority. They make and they break. They decide who will be guru, who cannot be guru, who has to stop initiating, who has to be suspended. There is an entity in this world that is superior to the guru. So that is what is called the covered Ritvik philosophy. In the same way, the Shankaracharya, he is not a theist. He is a covered Buddhist. He's not a pure Buddhist, and he's not a pure theist. He's known as a covered Buddhist. And this isn't just some little secret inside Vaishnava circles. Scholars know this as well, who study the different doctrines. They understand that Shankar is on a line between theism and atheism, between Buddhism. He is a covered Buddhist. He is not a pure theist, you see. So in a similar way, you have the Ritviks, and then you have who say that Prabhupada is the highest authority, the only guru, and then you have the covered Ritviks who say Prabhupada is the highest authority, and the gurus are not necessarily going to take you back to Godhead.
Prabhupada will take you back to Godhead.
Prabhupada will take you back to Godhead.
Yeah.
They're kind of like waiters, They bust the table, serve the table, but the cook's in the kitchen.
And the Ritviks are like Muslims who say that Muhammad is the last prophet.
Yeah. So that means there you have the Ritviks on one side. At least they're clear.
Yeah.
They're clear. But in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, you have the covered Ritviks. At one moment you're hearing something about Guru Tattva, and the next minute you're hearing that that the gurus are subordinate to the GBC. The GBC is the highest governing authority. Prabhupada takes you back to Godhead, not your guru. And this becomes very confusing for people, and no doubt because that's not the Guru Tattva. That's not the proper understanding. All right, so was there
was one point you'd mentioned to me the other day about how the Ritviks aren't disciples of Prabhupada, but they could be considered followers, and you gave your own example of when you were in Hawaii during Srila Prabhupada's time, which I thought was very poignant, actually.
All right. Well, during that time, it was in the 1969, 1970, just before we joined, I was part of the Krishna yoga community called KYC. And the head of that was Sridhara. That time, he wasn't initiated disciple of Prabhupada. And we had Harinam Sankirtan going on every day in Waikiki. We had big feasts going on every Wednesday at the Church of the Crossroads. We would rent this hall from the Christians and all this stuff. And we would actually go on Harinam at 5:30 in the evening, just when ISKCON was leaving, when Prabhupada's disciples were leaving. And our truck would pull up, and many times it would pull up right on the bumper just as they left. And this became a little bit of a controversy with Gaurasundar and Govinda Dasi would remember all these things quite well, Prabhupada's disciple Govinda Dasi. And then several times they came over to our gathering, or they came over to where we were staying, our house, or they came over at one point we were camped out in this public area. And they came over and there would be some confrontations. And the confrontations were well intended, and Gaurasundar and that group, Govinda Dasi, but particularly Gaurasundar was the spokesman, they would come over to say, yeah, this is all great, but you have to just surrender to a bona fide spiritual master. They came over to preach to us, you see. And we were reading Srila Prabhupada's books, and we were doing all these things, and it was a long story, but...
But you consider yourself Prabhupada's disciple?
Yeah, so one day when they came over and said you have to surrender to a bona fide spiritual master, our group representatives, which was Siddha Swarup and Tushta Krishna and a couple others, they responded and said, well, we are surrendered to a bona fide spiritual master. We are disciples. And they were like, who? And we said, Prabhupada. And they were like, they were very frustrated. So Gaurasundar wrote Srila Prabhupada a letter and explained to him our activities and that we were saying that we were his disciples. And Srila Prabhupada wrote back the letter to Gaurasundar. And then Gaurasundar came over to our gathering, which was held on Wednesdays at the Church of the Crossroads in Honolulu. And at that time, I was the head cook, and I was getting ready to serve out the prasadam to everybody, and there was a stage, and Gaurasundar came in. They were all dressed in dhotis and everything, and a little group, 4 or 5 people, and they said that they had a letter from Srila Prabhupada about us, and they wanted to read it out to everybody. And we had at least 100 guests there. And so Siddha Swarup welcomed them up, come up to the microphone, and read out this letter. So, and I stepped out of the kitchen. There had a kitchen there, and I stepped out in the doorway of the kitchen, and I was very interested to see what this is going to be about. And they read this letter from Srila Prabhupada, and part of that letter sticks in my mind even today, where Prabhupada writes and says, "It is very nice that these boys and girls are chanting Hare Krishna and reading our books, and you should give them whatever assistance or help that you need, whatever they want, you should give to them, etc. But they are not my disciples." And that was the wake-up call for us. And historically, then a couple weeks later, there were 53 of us in this ashram with holdings on Maui and on the not the Big Island, but on Oahu. And all 50 of us surrendered to Srila Prabhupada a couple weeks later, realizing that, yes, we consider him our guru, but it's a reciprocal relationship.
Right.
And we have not approached him to be his disciples. We may have not qualified to be his disciples in whatever way. We didn't know, but we knew that, okay, it's time to make the big step now. And just for the record, that group of 53 people gave $100,000 cash. And that was a lot of money in those days, close to $1 million by today's, value. Properties, buildings, vehicles, all kind of things. And then we split into groups And in groups of 10, we flew to Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, London. 10 people stayed in Honolulu. That makes 50. And 3 or 4 flew to India to see Srila Prabhupada and represent this big surrender. It was the single mass surrender to his divine grace in the whole story of the Hare Krishna movement in 12 years of Srila Prabhupada's presence. So it begins with us saying, yes, we are his disciples, and him correcting, and it says, it's very nice what you're doing, but you're not my disciples. So here we are today, 50 years later or something like that, people claiming, oh, I'm a disciple of Prabhupada. Well, I can see that they're trying to follow Srila Prabhupada, but they have many misunderstandings. But again, the Eastern and the Western, I mean, I've had run-ins with these Western Ritvik people, and it's just like, oh, geez, man, just bitter, anger. It's unpleasant. However, these Ritviks in India, I found them more inspiring to talk to than some of the GBCs and ISKCON gurus that I've talked to over the last decade or so.
Right.
Much more polite, very serious to try and understand. Helpful. In fact, at the Radha Damodar temple, we have those Ritviks spending $1 million to improve the area around Rupa Goswami Samadhi. We have them giving funds to build the Goshala, to do so many things, no strings attached. They don't want anything. At the same time, we have ISKCON, who has a 12-year court case going on now against Radha Damodar Temple, trying to claim ownership of Srila Prabhupada's rooms, Bhajan Kutir, trying to, not satisfied just to do service. No. They want to own those rooms. A huge embarrassment to Srila Prabhupada. Filing a court case against Sri Radha Damodar to take away property that was given to them by the Emperor Akbar, and the temple was built by Man Singh, the emperor, the general of Akbar's army. This is going back 400 and some years. They have owned these rooms, and now ISKCON has a court case against them to try and claim a proprietorship to this. Well, it's not going to succeed. It's ultimately going to fail. But this is the difference in the two people. Even years ago, we had this book. Where is that book? I don't have it on my bookshelf. It's called In Search of the Ultimate Goal of Life by Srila Prabhupada. And ISKCON BBT contacted me, and they wanted to print this book, and because I have the copyrights to that book, much to their dissatisfaction. I have the copyrights to that book. So they wanted to print this book, they said, and distribute it all over the world, and even translate it in multiple languages. And I told them, hey, that's great. I'll sign whatever you want and give you unlimited rights to do that. And he said, no, we want you to surrender the copyrights. We want to own that book. And I said, well, I don't think that's a wise decision on my part, because one day you're friendly and the next day you want to hang me. 15 years ago, there were resolutions passed, do not sell Narasingha Maharaj or any of his followers Prabhupada's books, either for their own personal use or to distribute. So I thought, okay, you guys are friendly now, but you take this book, and then next week you get all crazy again, and you decide to, I can't even purchase that book anymore. So, no, I will give you permission, distribute that book, nothing for me, nothing, you do it. And they said, no. And so they turned down they turned down the offer because they couldn't own it. Similarly, in the Radha Damodar court case, I was trying to mediate a few years ago and had it almost to a way that they could settle out of court between the Goswami family and between ISKCON about Prabhupada's room. And I said that all the things in the room, they have to belong to the Radha Damodar temple. There's a chair, a bookshelf, and an old bed. And Bhima from the BBT, who was a mediator in Bombay about this court case, he said, no, ISKCON has to own it. I said, well, that's not possible. That's not possible. First off, I'm the one that bought that bed and made that bed and put it in there, and that chair, and somebody else bought the bookcase. So, where do you get off? You want to own it. It's going to be owned by Damodar, Radha Damodar. That's not good enough. Krishna owns it. No. We want to own it. And the whole negotiation fell apart. And the court case has been going on for another 5 years now after that. So it's been 12 years, and it's going all the way to the Supreme Court, and they're going to lose the case. Yeah, I mean, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. There's some things wrong. The understanding of the position of guru, who will be guru, who's a pure devotee. So then you have these two letters which you read. Srila Prabhupada is in a nutshell explaining that if you have surrendered to a bona fide spiritual master, this is the first step. You are a pure devotee. There are step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are many steps all the way up to the fruits of love of God. But you don't get to step 2 without being a pure devotee. I mean, it's just amazing. It's not all one. Pure devotee, love of God, maha-bhagavat. Bingo, you got it one day, there it is. That's not the way it is. And if you don't understand the process, it's hard to progress yourself.
Right.
If you don't understand the process, then how you teach that science to others? So, all right, there you have it. We say that, we say, as Srila Maharaj said, Ritvik is the death of the Sampradaya. But some of these Ritvik people are quite sincere. They're just in a very unfortunate circumstance because the measurement they're taking is from ISKCON itself, which is full of philosophical deviations, full of moral deviations, full of managerial deviations. I mean, there's deviations at every level you can think of. And so those people, because, and they couldn't turn towards Gaudiya Mutt or something like that because part of their training was, oh, that's nonsense. Gaudiya Mutt's all nonsense. Prabhupada's disciple, Prabhupada's God brothers, they're all nonsense. Prabhupada's the only pure devotee. There were no other pure devotees. Well, this is all misleading nonsense, and it has misled these people and left them with, that's the best they could come up with.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so there you have it. Anything else to...
No, very much. That's it.
All right, so thank you very much. Until next time, Hare Krishna.